Okay, let's just dive right in.
Yeah.
For decades, the great American story, the whole narrative of destiny and justice, it was always told on the frontier. It was all about the cowboy.
Right, that lone figure bringing law, or at least a sort of honorable chaos to the Wild West. That was our epic.
Exactly. But by the late 1960s, that narrative was, frankly, it was getting pretty long in the tooth. It was just worn out by all the cultural upheaval.
It was more than just worn out. I think it was being fundamentally contested. I mean, if you look at the cultural context of 1969, which is when Mario Puzo's The Godfather lands, the traditional myth of America was completely up for grabs.
That's a great way to put it.
You still had shows like Gunsmoke and Bonanza on the air, and they were still popular, but they were swimming against this massive tide of, disillusionment.
A huge tide.
The civil rights movement, the women's movement was emerging, and maybe most importantly, the Vietnam War. All of these things were challenging that old macho ethic, that idea of manifest destiny that the Western was built on.
The whole idea of the righteous conquering hero was just collapsing.
It was, and the old heroes just felt hollow. So we started getting these fractured, sort of countercultural cowboys in the movies.
Right, like in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Exactly, the charming outlaws. Or you get the ultimate transformation in films like Easy Rider, where the heroes are on choppers instead of horses. They're just fundamentally rejecting the whole establishment. The old epic was being changed beyond recognition.
So America needed a new operational myth. Something for an age of cynicism where, trust in the official institutions had just cratered.
And Puzo delivered. He didn't just write a crime novel, he wrote a new American saga. I think the introduction from the source is perfect. It calls it Horatio Alger for Big Boys.
I love that.
Because this book, it provides a complete alternative blueprint for success in America. A world where the official government, the courts, the police, they're either too slow, too corrupt, or just too ineffective to actually protect you.
And the Corleones, they built their success not on hard work and thrift, but on ruthlessness, on loyalty, and this almost religious adherence to the family unit.
So our mission today is to do a deep dive into Puzo's text and really extract that Corleone operational rule book.
Yeah, we're looking for the psychological code, the surprising corporate strategy, and just the mechanics of how they built this parallel universe.
Yeah.
How they turned crime into this structured enterprise that was designed to achieve, ultimately, legitimacy.
And we can signal the sheer audacity of this whole enterprise right away with the first nugget Michael Corleone recalls from his father. It's an observation Don Vito made back in 1939.
What's your quote?
If the families had been running the State Department, there would never have been World War II.
That is just, it's breathtaking. It reframes what they do. It's not simple criminality.
No, it's a superior, more competent form of international relations.
It implies a level of order and decisiveness and, pragmatic action that the bureaucratic established governments just lacked. It sets the scale immediately. This family sees itself as being able to manage global affairs better than the nation state.
Right.
So if the Don is the architect of this new American destiny, we have to start at the genesis of his code. And the foundation of Vito Andolini's story is just pure, hard, Sicilian trauma and survival.
Absolutely. He was born Vito Andolini in the village of Corleone and was shipped off to America when he was only 12.
And what was it that forced him to make that run for his life?
It was an escape from the Sicilian Mafia, which even back in the early 20th century was already the second government.
Yeah.
It had more immediate power over the villagers' lives than Rome itself.
And the direct cause was violence.
Extreme violence. His father killed the local mafia chief in a feud, and so Vito's father was murdered in retaliation by blasts from a heavy shotgun called the Lupara.
His brother was killed too.
Precisely. And then the gunman came for young Vito. He was only 12, but they decided he was too close to manhood, and he posed a future threat. They were afraid he'd seek revenge one day.
So he fled, he lands in New York, and he deliberately takes the name of his village, Corleone, as his own.
It's the only tie he has left to his home. He turns this geographic marker into a personal mark of survival.
What's so crucial here is that the violence Vito brings with him isn't chaotic. It's calculated. It's about survival. And his first big move in New York, the Fanucci murder, it establishes the blueprint for his entire career.
It's what moves him from a petty thief to an organized power broker.
So tell us about Fanucci, this local extortionist, the Black Hand, and the strategic opportunity he presented.
Well, Fanucci was a menace, a real remnant of the old Black Hand street thugs. He operated on pure fear.
Right.
He'd already cost Vito his legitimate job at a grocery store, and then he comes demanding protection money from Vito's new small-time operation.
Which was, what, hijacking trucks of silk dresses?
Hijacking trucks with his partners, Peter Clemenza and Salvatore Tessio. Fanucci demands $300, and he explicitly threatens to go to the police and, bring shame on their families if they don't pay up.
So here's a guy whose whole business model is pure coercion. But Vito's method for handling him is just the quintessential Corleone playbook. He establishes immediate psychological control by acting meek and rational.
Absolutely. When Fanucci comes for the money, Vito speaks softly. He's very courteous. He says he can't give an answer right away, that he needs to talk to his partners to reason with them about the money.
And that single phrase, reason with him, becomes the deadliest warning rattle in their entire world.
It really does. Clemenza and Tessio, they expected Vito to maybe negotiate Fanucci down to $200, maybe even less. But they warned him. They said Fanucci never retreats. Vito used that expectation to create the perfect psychological cover.
But Vito's negotiation wasn't about money. It was mortal. He chose to eliminate the threat, not just manage the cost. What were the specific details of that execution that cemented his reputation?
The preparation was just meticulous, almost ritualistic. He invites Fanucci to his apartment, supposedly to reason with him about taking less money. But then he waits for Fanucci to leave. He makes sure the victim is relaxed, has put his daily loot away, maybe even his gun. Then Vito crosses the roofs. This silent, calculated stalk comes down a fire escape and waits in a dark hallway.
And he uses his childhood skill with the Lupara, the same type of gun that killed his father, to fire the first shot.
Right, the incapacitating shot. And the source material details the clinical, just cold-blooded nature of the follow-up.
Yeah, but pretty graphic.
The second bullet, fired with almost surgical intent, goes into the spidery vein of red on Fanucci's stomach. Fanucci lets out this terrible groan, which the book describes as almost comical because of the shock of it all.
And Vito shows zero emotion.
None. He puts the gun against Fanucci's sweaty cheek and fires the third bullet into his brain. Absolute finality.
What's so fascinating here is that the cleanup sequence is almost more important than the murder itself. He doesn't just wipe his hands. It's like an act of total denial.
That is the key distinction between Vito and just a common street thug. He needed to eliminate all traces of the act. He meticulously scrubbed his blood-splattered clothes in a tub with industrial-strength lye and heavy brown laundry soap. He made sure the clothes were mixed in with freshly washed laundry. It's like a ceremonial act. It establishes this rigorous professional code, a code of total operational denial that his partners, Clemenza and Tessio, would never have even thought of.
Wasn't about cleansing his conscience?
Not at all. It was about cleansing the evidence and establishing that he was untouchable.
So that single calculated act, the methodical planning, the cold efficiency, the absolute denial of guilt, and then taking over Fanucci's empire, that establishes the bedrock of Don Corleone's whole operating philosophy.
Use overwhelming force only when you absolutely have to. And always, always maintain an appearance of reasonableness, humility, and legitimacy.
It immediately secures his reputation. He's a fixer of problems, not a random mobster. His public persona is all about friendship and neighborly barter.
Right. He presents himself as this benevolent community elder who's just being paid in respect, when in reality, he's running a complete parallel legal and commercial system.
And his reputation becomes so overwhelming that it implies this kind of godlike quality. Michael recalls it later. He takes everything personal, like God. He knows every feather that falls from the tail of a sparrow.
Or however the hell it goes.
Yeah.
And crucially, he teaches people that society will impose insults that you have to bear, but a humble man, if he keeps his eyes open, can eventually take revenge on even the most powerful.
And that's what draws people to him. He has the humility everyone admires, while quietly holding the knowledge of true, devastating power.
This balancing act also extended to how he structured his family business. He saw the value of legitimate camouflage very early on.
Which is why he sends Tom Hagen, his adopted son, to law school.
Exactly. Recognizing that, and this is a famous quote, "A lawyer with his briefcase can steal more than 100 men with guns." He knew the future of power was in exploiting legal loopholes, not robbing banks.
But not all his sons fit into that carefully tailored mold. Sonny and Fredo, they jump right into the street business after high school.
Right, while Michael goes to Dartmouth and then openly defies his father by volunteering for the Marines in World War II. That created this deep, painful tension in the family.
And Don Corleone quickly saw the fatal flaws in his eldest, Santino.
Oh, absolutely. Sonny's constant outbursts of temper were seen as professionally dangerous. The Don believed a man's greatest advantage was having an enemy overestimate his faults and a friend underestimate his virtues.
And Sonny's temper did the exact opposite. It constantly advertised his weakness, his volatility, his predictable trigger points.
It's the ultimate indictment of a professional criminal. If you are predictable, you are vulnerable.
Exactly. And this foreshadows Sonny's tragic downfall, which we'll get into later. The Don knew he wasn't immortal, and he saw that if Sonny refused to be instructed, he could never run the family business with that cold, calculating restraint it needed.
The torch would have to pass to Michael, the reluctant warrior who had all the quiet force and intelligence of his great father. The Don was just waiting for Michael to finally accept his destiny.
So moving into the heart of the novel, the opening chapter, the wedding day, it's just a brilliant narrative device. It instantly shows you the breadth and the nature of the Don's power. It's a litany of favors.
It's a profound look at what happens when the official justice system fails and people turn to a superior parallel authority.
The supplicants who come to him, they perfectly demonstrate that the Corleone enterprise functions as a shadow government.
It replaces the slow, ineffective, and frankly often corrupt official state apparatus. Let's start with the first and most desperate request. Amerigo Bonacera, the Undertaker.
Right, he comes to the Don with severe disfavor because he'd always prided himself on avoiding the Mafia, relying only on the legitimate system.
And his daughter pays the price for that blind faith.
She does. Bonacera's daughter was brutally assaulted, disfigured by two clean-cut college boys. The legal system just failed him completely.
They got a suspended sentence, which just reinforces the Don's core belief that society imposes insults that the legitimate system refuses to fix. So Bonacera, now broken, he wants lethal justice.
But he insults the Don by trying to pay him a fee like a mercenary. He hasn't learned the Corleone code yet.
That's the critical teaching moment. When Bonacera shouts, "I will pay you anything you ask," Hagen visibly flinches. He knows this is the greatest offense. The Don rises and his voice rings like cold death. He reminds Bonacera that true justice isn't bought. It's earned through respect, friendship, and service. The price is eternal obligation, not cash.
And the Don agrees to the service, to have the boys beaten to jelly, but not killed. He even notes with this chilling irony, after all, we're not murderers no matter what that corpse valet dreams up in his foolish head.
The retribution delivered is perfectly tailored. Brutal efficiency without crossing the line into a state-level crime that would bring too much heat.
And the second request from Nazarene the baker is purely bureaucratic. It just shows the reach of the Don's political machine.
Nazarene needs help keeping Enzo, his daughter's Sicilian POW lover, in America so they can get married. This requires navigating complex immigration laws.
Something the state controls.
Exactly. It required the Don's influence to petition a congressman for a special bill. And the cost was clearly laid out.
Yeah.
$2,000, the going price for an act of Congress. This just shows the Don's power reaches right into the legislative branch.
And then we get to the most famous example of the Don's influence, the Hollywood negotiation for his godson, Johnny Fontaine.
Right. Fontaine, a popular singer whose career was stalling, desperately needed this one movie role, but the studio head, Jack Woltz, was blocking him completely.
And the obstacle, Jack Woltz, he was a real heavy hitter. A personavante in the legitimate world.
Oh, absolutely. He owned a $10 million racing stable. He advised the president. He knew J. Edgar Hoover personally. He felt completely secure in his power.
So Hagen, as the family's envoy, he tries using standard corporate threats, hinting at a studio labor strike.
Which Woltz just dismisses. He knows how to fight labor disputes.
He does.
And Woltz was implacably opposed to Fontaine. But the reason wasn't business. It was intensely personal. And this is the key. Fontaine had seduced and ruined Woltz's young protege, making the powerful mogul look ridiculous.
So Woltz believed his political connections gave him absolute immunity from any kind of private retribution.
He did. But this is where the Don shows that he, too, understands the personal nature of business, but on a much grander, more terrifying scale.
He knew you can't leverage a man's political power. You have to attack his vanity, his deepest, most private obsession.
And for Woltz, that was his prize racehorse, Khartoum, which he'd bought for $600,000. The Don's decision to sever the horse's head and place it in Woltz's bed, it just bypassed all of Woltz's institutional protection. Hoover and the president, the lawyers, none of them could protect him from that.
It's pure, non-negotiable psychological warfare.
And the result is immediate capitulation. Woltz wakes up to that horror, and the sheer audacity of it, the ability to penetrate his security, kill an asset worth that much money, and leave it as a message, it forces him to give Johnny the role immediately.
Which brings us to the ultimate clash of business models. The Sollozzo drug proposition, the thing that precipitates the war.
Virgil Sollozzo, the Turkish fox, backed by the Tattaglia family, offers the Corleones a massive opportunity in narcotics. He argues there's way more money in it than in gambling or bootlegging.
And Tom Hagen, the consigliere who thinks like a corporate lawyer, he actually supports the deal.
He does. He makes a sophisticated, realpolitik argument. He says, if we don't get into it, somebody else will. With the revenue they earn, they can amass more. Police and political power. Their family will become stronger than ours. It's just like countries. If they arm, we have to arm.
It's a perfectly rational argument for market share protection.
Yeah.
But Don Corleone's refusal is all about risk management and his long-term strategy for legitimacy.
That is the essential Corleone distinction. He admits the profits are huge, but he says the risk is too great because it threatens his other interests, his legitimate political capital.
Right. His political contacts see gambling and liquor as harmless vice.
Something they can tolerate and, take clean graft from. But narcotics, they see that as a dirty business. He refuses to endanger the family's whole established safe livelihood out of greed.
He knew that getting into drugs would expose his people to potential 20-year sentences, and a desperate man in prison might break the omerta and talk his brains out.
He was protecting the political apparatus. Sollozzo needed the Don's controlled environment, the fixed police and judges, to operate without risk. So the Don's refusal, even though it was courteous, was a complete obstruction of his business model.
So the Don vetoed the entire future of Sollozzo's expansion.
He did. And the source notes that the Don knew this no would cause trouble, which is why his immediate secret command to Hagen was so telling. Send Luca Brasi to see me.
And the crisis erupts almost immediately. The Don is shot in the street. His son Fredo is found just weeping over him. Can't even draw his own gun. But Sollozzo makes a critical strategic error right away.
He does. He kidnaps Tom Hagen, thinking the Don is dead, and he tries to broker peace with Sonny through him.
This is where Hagen's vulnerability as a peacetime consigliere is just laid bare.
Sollozzo immediately insults the family, claiming the other families distrusted the Don for making Hagen, an Irishman, his advisor, calling them the Irish gang.
Hagen is a lawyer, an intellectual. He's perfect for a corporate environment, but when the rules shift to war, he's totally exposed.
Exactly. Sonny recognizes this later. He says Hagen isn't Sicilian and isn't suited to be a consigliere in a time of war, and that blood was blood and nothing else was its equal.
Meanwhile, the fate of Luca Brasi confirms the savagery of the enemy's operation. Brasi, the Don's most feared retainer, had already been ordered to secretly infiltrate the Tattaglia family.
He meets Sollozzo and Bruno Taddia at a nightclub, and Brasi, ever cautious, is wearing a bulletproof vest. But it's a setup. As he's talking, a third man steps out and throws a thin silk cord of garrote around his neck.
The description of his death is designed to be the ultimate psychological shock. It's a statement about the new rules of this war.
It's probably the most gruesome passage in the novel. The cord instantly chokes him off. As he dies, his sphincter opens and the waste of his body spilled out. He dies with his eyes bulging out of his head as if in the utmost surprise.
A completely humiliating end for a man whose reputation was built on terrifying, near-mythical violence.
A man so dangerous that Hagen kept the story of him murdering the mother of his infant son secret from Michael until he was 100. Sollozzo uses this death to symbolically dismantle the old guard's reliance on brute force.
So the war is now deeply personal, even though Hagen desperately tries to frame it as business.
Right, he tells Sonny, this is not a personal thing, this is business. But Michael, the civilian son, the war hero, arrives at the hospital and sees the crisis firsthand. He finds the Don completely unprotected. The guards have been removed by Captain McCluskey.
This is Michael's true turning point, the collapse of his belief in the system.
He immediately gets what Sollozzo's endgame is. Finish the job right there in the hospital. When he tries to intervene, he's brutally punched and gets a broken wired jaw from McCluskey, who it turns out is on Sollozzo's payroll.
McCluskey was an old-fashioned cop who took clean graft, and he was arrogant enough to believe he was untouchable.
He thought the toughest hood in the Mafia had to stand still if the lowliest patrolman decided to slap him around.
Michael's broken jaw, suffered at the hands of a corrupt cop, is the physical proof that legitimate society failed to protect his father. And Michael, sitting there with his shattered face, defines the entire Corleone philosophy for Hagen. He settles the business versus personal debate forever.
And that quote is just the thesis of the entire novel. Don't let anybody kid you. It's all personal, every bit of business. If a bolt of lightning hit a friend of his, the old man would take it personal. That's what makes him great, the great Don.
It's an amazing line.
Michael realizes the only thing protecting the family is the willingness to take every single slight, every injury, every business disagreement as an existential personal insult that has to be answered.
And this epiphany drives his decision to execute Salozzo and the corrupt captain. Sonny and the caporegimes agree, but they think Michael is just motivated by rage over his broken jaw.
They vastly underestimate his cold, calculating genius. He immediately uses his injury as a professional tool. He figures Salozzo's men won't frisk him thoroughly because of the bandages.
The logistics of the murder are meticulous. Clemenza plants the gun in the restaurant bathroom.
And the execution itself is ice cold. It's not a frenzied street shooting. It's an act of clinical necessity.
He kills Salozzo first, then the slower police captain. And crucially, he lets the gun slip out of his hand so that it bounced off his body and made no noise. He drops the gun, leaves it at the scene, and flees.
And the war hero becomes a killer, ensuring his exile.
He's immediately sent to Sicily under the protection of Don Tomasino, an old-fashioned mafia chief. It's interesting that Tomasino represents the purity of the old world. He dislikes dope and prostitution, and he controls the essential asset, the local water rights.
And this period in Sicily is Michael's full cultural reimmersion. He falls for Apollonia, whose beauty hits him like a thunderbolt. This love is immediate, obsessive, and it completely wipes Kay, the modern American woman, completely out of his consciousness.
But tragedy finds him even there.
Yeah.
Apollonia is killed by a car bomb that was meant for Michael, planted by Fabrizio, the shepherd hired as a bodyguard.
This just confirms the enemy's total willingness to strike at Michael's personal life. It hardens his resolve into this unbreakable professional steel.
Back in New York, the war is taking a terrible toll. Sonny, now in charge, is just engaging these costly, senseless raids.
Pimps are being shot, dock goons massacred, the family is hemorrhaging money, and their political strength is gone because the Don is too weak to participate.
And Sonny's fatal flaw, his temper, is exploited with lethal precision.
His sister Connie's husband, Carlo Rizzi, abuses her. The Don had refused to interfere, claiming a husband's duties were sacrosanct.
But Carlo, believing the Corleone family is weak, starts bragging about making the daughter of the great Don his doormat. When Connie calls Sonny after a severe beating, Sonny flies into a murderous, predictable rage.
He drives straight to the city and publicly beats Carlo to jelly on a stoop.
And that public display, followed by a death threat, confirms Sonny's volatile path for the enemy. Carlo Rizzi, humiliated and fearing for his life, now has the perfect reason and opportunity to betray the family.
The five families, led by Barzini and Tattaglia, had been waiting for exactly this kind of emotional reaction. They lay a terrible ambush at the Long Beach toll booth.
Sonny is massacred. His body is riddled with bullets. They even kick him in the face to show a mark made by a more personal human power.
It's so horrific that Amerigo Bonacera, the Undertaker, is called upon to use his unique skill so that Sonny's mother won't have to see his face. The cost of this war is now just unbearable.
So the Don, wounded and grieving, recognizes the family is overmatched, and he initiates peace talks.
At the five-family summit, he's seemingly humble. He concedes the most important point. He'll use his political influence to protect the drug business, but he won't invest his own money or participate in the dirty operations.
But his true masterstroke is the superstitious threat, which perfectly secures Michael's safety.
He assures them he won't seek vengeance for Sonny. But he issues this ironclad warning about Michael that leverages their deepest cultural fears. He says, "I am a superstitious man. If some unlucky accident should befall my youngest son, my superstition will make me feel that it was the result of the ill will still borne me by some people here.
And then the kicker, the ultimate threat.
If my son is struck by a bolt of lightning, I will blame some of the people here."
It's a brilliant piece of psychological theater. He's not saying he has supernatural powers.
No, he's publicly given up his right to revenge for Sonny, but he makes any harm to Michael an existential act against the peace they just negotiated. They are forced to treat Michael's safety as an ironclad clause in the treaty.
And that secures Michael's path home.
Michael returns and is confirmed as the new leader. His focus shifts immediately to corporate strategy, consolidating assets and moving the family to Nevada. Vegas is the future open city.
He immediately demonstrates his new, cool authority. He visits Fredo and confronts Mo Green, the owner of the casino. Green is defiant. He thinks that Godfather is too sick to intervene. He publicly insults Fredo.
Green's arrogance, calling them Dagos, seals his fate. But Michael's response is so measured, almost dangerously calm. Don't insult people who are trying to help you.
Such a contrast with Sonny's disastrous temper.
And Michael immediately begins laying the groundwork for the purge. After the Don's funeral, he confronts Carlo Rizzi about Santino. Carlo, thinking he's just being exiled to Vegas, confesses that Barzini and Tattaglia set up Sonny's murder.
The confession provides the tactical intelligence and removes all internal doubt about what needs to be done. Carlo gets in the car thinking he's safe.
But Clemenza, the loyal caporegime, is waiting in the back seat. The execution is silent and professional. Clemenza, cunningly and daintily as a little girl slipping a ribbon over the head of a kitten, throws his garrote around Carlo's neck.
Which brings us to the 5 acts of purification. The simultaneous executions that follow are Michael's final, definitive move to consolidate power. This is where he fuses old-world ruthlessness with modern, decentralized corporate strategy.
The strategic brilliance is in the timing. The executions are orchestrated to happen at the exact same time as the baptism of Connie and Carlo's son, for whom Michael is the godfather.
This dual event, the religious purification of the family's future paired with the violent purging of the past, is Puzo's masterpiece of irony.
Let's run through them. Barzini, the senior Don, is killed by Alneri, the tough cop Michael recruited, who's disguised in a full police uniform at a traffic stop.
The ultimate symbolic statement? He's using the state's own authority for private, fatal means.
Mo Green is shot in the eye while getting a massage in Vegas, clearing the path for the Corleones' Nevada expansion.
And the internal threats are also eliminated.
Tessio, the trusted caporegime, is revealed as the traitor and taken away to be killed. Fabrizio, the Sicilian traitor who killed Apollonia, is tracked down to his pizza parlor in Buffalo and killed. And finally, Carlo Rizzi is garroted by Clemenza.
Michael has eliminated all external enemies and internal threats, moving the Corleone family away from dirty business and solidifying their future in legitimate real estate, unions, and Wall Street.
It's the Horatio Alger success story, just written in blood and power.
And finally, we see the foundation of Michael's leadership code applied to his own marriage with Kay. She asks him directly if he killed Sollozzo and McCluskey, and he refuses to tell her.
He says, "It doesn't matter whether I did or not. You have to understand that."
He explicitly defines their roles. You'll be my wife, but you won't be my partner in life. Not an equal partner.
His belief system, now fully formed and lethal, is taken straight from his father's lessons, but perfected with modern ruthlessness. I believe in my family. I don't trust society to protect us.
What a profound and bloody saga. We've synthesized the Corleone operational code, a philosophy built on personal loyalty, like Luca Brasi, and calculated vengeance, like against Fanucci and Waltz, and above all, the absolute power of the family unit.
Michael's real genius was fusing that ruthless, old-world ethic with a modern, diversified corporate strategy. He shifted the family from New York street gambling to Nevada real estate, leveraging unions, moving into Wall Street. He achieved the transition that Don always dreamed of.
And the meta-context here is so important. Mario Puzo himself, a writer who loved to gamble and wrote the book out of desperation, he later saw it as a rich family saga that was also an apt metaphor for the growth of corporate America.
Puzo admitted his research into real mobsters was pretty limited. The detailed organizational model came from his own imagination. He always said, "Writing, like gambling, was always a big part of my life. And you never really had to kill someone to get what you wanted. You just had to beat fate."
But what he created went beyond his intent. It became a commentary on American power itself. Michael's actions embody that final, brutal transition as he realizes what his father's time meant.
Right, the quote. "The things he did can no longer be done except with a great deal of risk. Whether we like it or not, the Corleone family has to join that society. But when they do, I'd like us to join it with plenty of our own power."
He ensures the family joins legitimate society, but only from a position of absolute, impregnable strength.
Michael is the ultimate expression of that Horatio Alger for big boys theme. He doesn't just acquire wealth, he acquires the power to dictate reality.
So we'll leave you with this final provocation to chew on. Does Michael Corleone, the war hero, the math professor, the man who believed he was protecting his children's future, does he represent the ultimate brutal success story of corporate American integration, where family loyalty and private power always supersede public law?
And if that's the case, how do we really distinguish his style of power acquisition from the Petsanovanti running major studios and government offices who just operate with a bit more plausible deniability?